The passport in your pocket says you belong to a nation. The government you vote for claims to hold the monopoly on geopolitical power. That is an illusion. Right now, a corporate board meeting in Zurich or a private intelligence briefing in Washington D.C. holds more sway over the price of your morning coffee, the security of your savings, and the likelihood of your country entering a proxy war than any ballot you will ever cast. We live in an era where Fortune 500 companies possess intelligence apparatuses that rival the CIA. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a business model. Consider this a formal disclaimer. The analysis that follows is not based on leaked rumors or speculative fiction. Every system, firm, and operation detailed in this script is documented through public corporate registries, congressional testimonies, and official court filings. We are examining the structural reality of global power. If you are looking for sensationalized myths, look elsewhere. If you want to understand the cold mechanics of how the world actually runs, pay attention. Imagine you are a senior executive at a multi-billion-dollar mining conglomerate. You are about to invest $3 billion into an infrastructure project in an unstable region of sub-Saharan Africa. If the government falls, you lose everything. If a local militia seizes the supply lines, your stock price collapses. Who do you call? Not the State Department. They move too slowly. They have diplomatic constraints. Instead, you hire a private intelligence firm. Within 48 hours, former operatives from MI6, the CIA, or the Mossad are on the ground. They are not wearing uniforms. They do not report to a congressional oversight committee. They report directly to you. They manipulate local political factions, secure the perimeter, and map out the human terrain. This is the privatization of statecraft. The illusion of public intelligence. For decades, citizens have operated under a foundational assumption that the state maintains exclusive custody over secrets and national strategy. We are taught that intelligence agencies like the CIA, the NSA, or Britain's SIS exist solely to protect the public interest against foreign adversaries. That assumption is obsolete. The reality is a massive structural shift that accelerated dramatically after the year 2001. Following the terrorist attacks on September 11, the United States government faced an unprecedented demand for data collection and analytical bandwidth. The solution was not to expand the government bureaucracy internally. The solution was to outsource. According to a landmark investigative report by the Washington Post titled, Top Secret America, published in 2010, roughly 30% of the workforce in the U.S. intelligence community were private contractors. By the mid-2010s, ODNI, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, resource charts consistently demonstrated that nearly 70% of the U.S. intelligence community's budgeted dollars were flowing directly to private contractors. Think about that metric. 2/3 of the machinery built to monitor the globe is owned and operated by private entities driven by a fiduciary duty to maximize shareholder value. When a public intelligence officer leaves government service, they no longer retire to write memoirs. They cross the revolving door into the private sector. They take their security clearances, their networks of informants, and the deep understanding of systemic vulnerabilities with them. The human mind has a peculiar quirk. We crave structure and predictability. Psychological studies on uncertainty reduction show that when humans face high-stakes ambiguity, they will pay almost any price for the perception of certainty. Private intelligence firms capitalize on this psychological vulnerability. They sell certainty to hyper-anxious corporate executives who are terrified of unpredictable global markets. This brings us to the core contradiction of our modern system. We believe our elected leaders run the geopolitical chessboard. In reality, they're looking at the exact same data feeds that have already been packaged, filtered, and monetized by private corporations. The modern Praetorian Guard. To map this parallel layer of global governance, we must analyze the specific entities that operate within it. These are not mercenary armies like the Wagner Group or the former Blackwater, which handle physical kinetic security. These are corporate intelligence firms that deal in information, influence, and structural subversion. Take, for instance, K2 Integrity, formerly K2 Intelligence, founded by Jules Kroll, the man widely credited with inventing the modern corporate investigations industry. Or consider Hakluyt Co, a discreet firm based in Mayfair, London. Hakluyt was founded in 1995 by former British intelligence officials, including Christopher James, who previously managed the MI6 liaison with the business world. Firms like Hakluyt do not post billboards. They do not issue press releases. Their clients are FTSE 100 and Fortune 500 executives who need to know the true intentions of foreign regulators, the internal stability of state-owned enterprises, or the hidden vulnerabilities of a corporate rival. Then there is Black Cube, an agency staffed explicitly by former operatives of Israeli intelligence agencies, including Mossad. Black Cube gained public notoriety during the exposure of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, where court records and investigative reporting by The New Yorker revealed they were hired to gather intelligence on journalists and victims to suppress the story. What makes these firms devastatingly effective is their methodology. They utilize a system known as HUMINT, human intelligence. When a private intelligence firm targets an objective, they do not just hack a database. They deploy operational psychology. They create elaborate front companies, fake venture capital funds, and false identities. An operative might approach a target under the guise of an academic researcher offering a prestigious consulting role, or a tech investor looking to fund a startup. The target, driven by professional vanity or financial incentive, willingly reveals proprietary data, internal regulatory vulnerabilities, or state secrets. It is a highly calculated manipulation of basic human nature. Let us look at the mathematics of this industry. The global corporate investigations and private intelligence market size was valued at over $15 billion globally in the early 2020s and continues to scale at a compound annual growth rate of over 6%. This capital does not come from state taxes. It comes from corporate cash reserves. When a private entity possesses more capital to deploy on a specific intelligence objective than a regional desk at a State Department, the balance of power shifts permanently. The sovereign state becomes the secondary actor. The mechanics of corporate sovereignty. How does this system directly impact your life? Let us deconstruct a highly specific, systemic loop. Imagine a global tech monopoly faces a potential antitrust investigation by the European Commission. If the investigation proceeds, the company faces billions of dollars in fines and a forced breakup of its business model. This would wipe out hundreds of billions in market capitalization, impacting pension funds, retail investors, and global markets. The tech monopoly does not simply hire lawyers. Lawyers operate within the boundaries of the courtroom. The monopoly hires a private intelligence firm. The firm's objective is simple: neutralize the regulatory threat before it ever reaches a courtroom. Operatives begin by mapping the social, financial, and psychological profiles of the key European regulators. They look for leverage points. They discover that a key regulator's spouse has a stake in an offshore investment vehicle, or that a senior policymaker is angling for a lucrative board seat after the government tenure ends. Simultaneously, the private intelligence firm launches an information warfare campaign. They create think tanks, fund academic research papers that predict economic ruin if antitrust laws are enforced, and deploy digital networks to shape public perception. The regulator suddenly finds themselves facing immense internal and external pressure. The investigation slows down. The language of the policy is watered down. The corporate monopoly remains intact. You, the consumer, continue to use the platform, completely unaware that the digital architecture of your daily life was preserved not by market competition or legal merit, but by a covert corporate intervention. This creates a self-reinforcing feedback loop. 1. Capital accumulation. Large corporations generate unprecedented profits by operating globally. 2. Intelligence procurement. They use these profits to hire private intelligence apparatuses that outmaneuver state regulators. 3. Regulatory capture. The state is neutralized, allowing the corporation to expand its monopoly and accumulate even more capital. The loop is as follows: corporate profits leads to higher private intel, which in turn leads to neutralize regulators, then to expand monopoly, which leads to more profits. This loop effectively detaches the corporation from the geography of the nation-state. A multinational corporation is no longer bound by the laws of the country where its headquarters are located. It uses private intelligence to navigate, exploit, and bypass the laws of every nation on Earth simultaneously. Objections and realities. At this point, a rational skeptic might raise an objection. Is this not simply higher-end consulting? Is this not just the natural evolution of corporate lobbying and legal strategy? After all, companies have always gathered market research. This objection misunderstands the qualitative nature of the work. Market research measures consumer trends. Private intelligence measures human vulnerabilities and state capabilities. Lobbyists operate in the public registry. They must disclose who pays them and which bills they attempt to influence under frameworks like the Lobbying Disclosure Act in the United States. Private intelligence firms operate entirely in the shadows. Their contracts are shielded by attorney-client privilege, often routed through international law firms to ensure they are legally undiscoverable. Furthermore, traditional consulting firms like McKinsey or Boston Consulting Group advise clients on how to optimize their internal structures within an existing system. Private intelligence firms are hired to change the system itself, covertly. When an agency creates fake identities to infiltrate an activist group protesting a pipeline, or intercepts the communications of a sovereign nation's trade delegation during a treaty negotiation, they are not practicing consulting. They are executing espionage. The ethical line is not just crossed, it is entirely erased by the nature of the corporate contract. A state intelligence officer takes an oath to a constitution or a monarch. If they violate that oath, they can be prosecuted for treason. A private intelligence contractor takes an oath to a non-disclosure agreement. Their highest moral obligation is the preservation of client confidentiality. If their client's interest requires the destabilization of a local currency or the character assassination of a whistleblower, the contractor's financial incentive aligns perfectly with executing that task, provided they do not get caught. The parallel layer of global governance. We must look at where this trajectory leads. When you aggregate these private actors, you see the emergence of a parallel layer of global governance. It is a system run by an unelected, unaccountable technocratic elite. This elite moves seamlessly between the public and private sectors. Consider the career trajectories of the world's most powerful individuals. A director of a state intelligence agency serves for 5 years, gaining access to the most sensitive geopolitical nodes on Earth. They then step down and join the board of a global investment bank or found their own strategic advisory firm. They are selling the insights they gained while being paid by taxpayers to the highest corporate bidder. This creates a systemic intelligence asymmetry. The state apparatus is constantly being drained of its best talent, while the private sector accumulates a monopoly on operational experience. The brightest minds in counterterrorism, cyber warfare, and geopolitical analysis are no longer working for governments. They are working for hedge funds, energy giants, and tech monopolies. What are the long-term consequences of this shift? First, the complete erosion of democratic accountability. When foreign policy or national economic strategy is shaped by private intelligence reports delivered to corporate boards, the electorate has no visibility into the decision-making process. You cannot vote out a private intelligence firm. You cannot file a Freedom of Information Act request with a private partnership based in Switzerland or London. Second, the weaponization of truth. Because these firms excel at information operations, they have the capacity to manufacture narratives that dictate state policy. We have seen instances where private intelligence dossiers, paid for by political campaigns or corporate entities, have become the primary drivers of mainstream media narratives and congressional investigations. The line between objective reality and manufactured intelligence is completely blurred. The invisible matrix. Look around you. The digital infrastructure you rely on, the energy that powers your home, the financial institutions that hold your livelihood, these are not neutral utilities. They are the battlegrounds of a continuous, invisible intelligence war. You are not a participant in this war. You are the terrain. Every piece of data you generate, every financial transaction you make, and every political opinion you express is ingested by the data brokers and analytical engines that feed this corporate intelligence matrix. It is used to predict your behavior, neutralize your dissent, and maintain the stability of the global market system. The rise of private intelligence firms is the ultimate realization of corporate sovereignty. The nation-state is not dead, but it has been demoted. It now serves as the administrative enforcer for a global corporate order that is managed, protected, and steered by shadow diplomats. The question is no longer whether you can escape this system. The question is whether you can afford to remain blind to how it operates. The next level of analysis. To truly understand how this parallel layer of governance interacts with the global financial system, you need to understand the mechanics of the petrodollar and how capital flows are hidden across the globe. If you want to continue deconstructing the hidden architecture of our world, subscribe to this platform. Click the notification bell so you do not miss our next deep dive. Share this analysis with those who still believe the evening news tells the whole story. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the privatization of statecraft. Do you believe the nation-state can ever reclaim its monopoly on intelligence, or has the corporate sovereign already won? Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant.